My name is Yogesh Jain. I am director of my own company, working in the field since 1998. Started this company in 2006. My educational details and areas of strength are written in this slide, which will come to you. So, we are going to understand what is statistical process control. This is going to be useful majorly in automotive industry where it is used as a core tool. In all the standards of ISO, SPC, that is statistical process control or statistical techniques are being talked of. And statistics have been playing a big role in management systems right from inception, rather in quality right from when the manufacturing started as a mass manufacturing or even before when it was a craftsman era. So earlier, it was a quality assurance period wherein post-production inspection was being done and the statistical technique used then were acceptable quality level, alpha risk, beta risk, and those kind of activities we were discussing and understanding. After 1970s or 80s, when statistical process control was being talked of, which gained prominence when QS 9000 became very much in vogue by big three, that is Chrysler, Ford, and GM, that people started focusing towards working on process quality instead of product quality, which is going to come after production. So idea is if we control the process, the outcoming quality is going to be, or outcoming product will be of a good quality. So the idea is quality is required to remain in business, to retain employees, to achieve technical progress, and SPC is also one of the prominent tool of Six Sigma and features in practically all belts of Six Sigma. In yellow belt, we ask supervisors and operators to help us in data collection. In green belt, some tools of SPC or some tools of statistics are used, out of which SPC, this one tool is definitely taught. In black belt, more such or greater tool is being discussed wherein unilateral tolerance, control charts, and those kind of things are discussed. Now, we have already talked what was the problem with detection theory. We used to detect the fault after the production was happened or after the production, and whatever value addition you have done is going for 6. So idea is that while we are adding value, we must control the process so that good product goes to next process and still good product goes to further process, and finally we get the better outcome. So prevention was talked of, and SPC therefore happens to be a preventive approach. We all understand a lot of things about specification be given by customer. Now this is very startling to understand. Even if we make everything within tolerance, there is every possibility that in about 10 lakh pieces if you manufacture, there is a possibility of 2,700 pieces going out of tolerance. This is why, because the asymptotic curve that is developed in bell-shaped curve goes with an understanding of 99.97% of past parts under plus and minus 3 sigma when we develop a frequency distribution chart considering about 50 products. From that understanding, we got to understand that about 2,700 parts are reject even if our process control limits match the tolerance limit. So remaining within tolerance is not good enough. This has to be understood very clearly. Even if you are matching customer tolerance requirement into your process, there is every possibility that some parts of your process might go out of tolerance because there is an inherent variation in the process, and that variation takes some part in the asymptotic curve on either side of the limit, which is responsible for statistically around 2,700 parts in a million. So before we go for statistical process control, we need to understand what is process. Am I audible? Because Mr. Shankar is saying audio, other are saying please be louder. Sri Kantan Sahib is saying audio perfect. So I am going ahead. Thank you, Ganguly Sahib. When we talk of process, process is a combination of 5M or 6M, man, machine, method, material, measurement. So these, and money, of course. So these 5 or 6M need to be understood. And if we consider process, we will have to train the person, we will have to establish the method, we will have to have right kind of measurement system to control that measurement system. We go for measurement system analysis so that our measurement system is well within our error required range of less than 10%. And we will have to have other parameter like material, which is of defined chemistry and defined physical parameters. Once these 4M's are controlled, the only thing that remains varying or that has a variable factor remains machine. So most of the times we work on process parameters of machine, and sometimes we also work on the parameters of product in measuring the dimension coming out of that machine. And in both the cases, if you are measuring temperature, if you are measuring pressure at some defined point of time and taking a statistical analysis of that, or if you are going for a product dimension and taking analysis of that, in both the cases, what we are essentially working on is statistical process control of, say, essentially machine, because we have boiled down 5M to 1M, considering 4M as constant. So this also needs to be understood, that we are making a lot of things constant, so that we have to work on one variable. That one variable has to be in a very big way as machine. All others, if errors are coming from all other areas, we will have to separately work on them, and we will have to understand what kind of variation they are bringing in our whole of the process. So what is the need of process control? I have already told you. The idea is that we want to be right at first time. In today's world, we can't afford some parts to go reject. They become scrap. There's a load of environment. There's a cost factor. There's a cost. There is a rejection factor. There's a employee morale. Everything is on stake. Now we all need to understand what is variation. Before that, we go to school time statistics. We all must have learned what is mean, what is median, what is mode. And I would request you all, if you are at all interested in SPC, before going for high level SPC, we must brush up our school time statistics, go back to books, go back to Google, and understand what is this all about. Because when people ask questions, and if we are not able to answer these simple things, then it doesn't show good on our part. We as consultants need to know basics of statistics. So I was talking of variation. In any natural process, there is variation. When we talk of calibration and we understand what is the reference for time, and the basic reference comes from cesium atom. Cesium atom in a given temperature, given atmospheric pressure, oscillates or give vibrations or give oscillations of a specific type. So that is a defined variation, you can say. So I am saying that in any kind of physical system on Earth, even if you are going to office at right 10 o'clock and you need to be on time, if you measure your timing of past 50 days, it would be some seconds here and there, might be few minutes here and there. And if you try to plot a graph out of it, again, it would fall into a bell-shaped curve through histogram method. So what I'm trying to say is, even if you are going to office, you cannot reach exactly dot on time. We used to hear from our seniors, if somebody is coming or if somebody is very disciplinary, we can say that by the action of that person, we can match the watch. In that case, that person has very low variation. That doesn't mean he won't have variation. Variation is bound to be there in his actions also. So what does variation mean? Variation means that a process does not produce the same result every time. Physically, that is not possible. Naturally, there has to be some variation. We can have two kinds of variation that we have observed. One are natural variation, which are randomly occurring, which we cannot generally control. There are certain techniques by which we can still minimize them, but we cannot have zero random variation. Then there are certain variations where there is a possibility that some external factors come onto it. For that particular instance, for example, when you are going to office, normally you are within 2-3 minutes here and there of 10 o'clock, but today there was a procession going on the road, or there was a railway gate wherein you had to wait for 5 minutes or 7 minutes, which delayed the whole process. So those variations are called as special cause oriented variation, and those need to be understood in that way. So we have talked of expected variation. This we must live with. We can't do much about it. There are methods by which we can narrow further them down, by controlling environment, by improving machine, by having better training of our workers. But if all things are given and we are asked to plot a graph, we will have some expected variation definitely. I told you that we can minimize it, we cannot zero it. Then we have talked about unexpected variation, and the total of them would become total process variation. So this is how it looks when every hen is there, which is giving some red eggs and most of the times white eggs. We say that there is a chance cause of giving some red eggs. Generally, a stable process works between a specification limits, and generally, if our process is stable, all the variations are well within both the specification limits. In some cases where there are more chances of unexpected variation or special cause variation or assignable variation, then we can understand it by this diagram. Some parameters or some parts would go out of specification limit. In this picture, we have something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 parts out of limit, and 1 part is on the boundary, or that is upper specification limit. So in about 20-25 parts, about 6 parts are out of specification and 1 is just on boundary. So this is an example of unstable process. So when both the graphs are put side by side, this is how they look. Idea is that we have to control the right side of graph so that it becomes more like left side. Now there is something called as histogram. In my every slide, if you see on the top right corner, we have developed a logo which we generally use for our Six Sigma studies. This is of histogram with a spread signal in between and a mean line also. So what the histogram is nothing but a frequency distribution of say 50, 125 or 300 products for a particular parameter divided into certain intervals based on our histogram making exercises, which we were taught in 8th or 9th of our statistics. So what histogram depicts, if the data are generated from a process in statistical control, the data as a group tend to form a stable pattern called a distribution. Now this distribution tends to be inverted bell-shaped curve. So this is a bell-shaped curve, and this tends to have more readings in center, and as we go on either side, the readings start waning, and this looks like a parabolic curve. Not exactly parabola, but it looks like a parabolic curve. This distribution is characterized by location, spread, and shape. Shape, as I told you, is bell-shaped. Most of the time it must be symmetrical. Spread, now it can be very close and it can be very broad. And location, we will talk about it a little later. So this is how statistically controlled process looks like. When we develop a frequency distribution chart about it, we need to be very clear about what is this graph. This is just a charting of all the parts in a single graph. We have not combined availability of parts into some frequency distribution. This is graph wherein we have combined certain type of parts into defined frequencies, and in the distribution we find that central portion has more products, and as we go on the side, their products reduce, or the number of products reduce. So the learning till now is, if the process is stable in nature, statistics can help us to predict the behavior of process with respect to time. Stable process is called a statistically controlled process. We must also understand one thing from this. In any process of the world, whatever be the upper specification limit or lower specification limit, if it is normally working for a variable oriented process, not a discrete process, please understand, for a variable oriented process, if you convert this into a histogram through our frequency distribution method, this graph is going to come out, and this is going to same all across the world for all type of processes, for all types of parameters, be it temperature, be it weight, be it dimension, whatever parameter you choose, you can boil that down to a bell-shaped curve if it is a statistical process. Sorry. So we were here. If process stable in nature, statistics can help us predict the behavior of process with respect to time. Why? Because the process is going to perform in a predictable way. Statistics cannot predict for unstable process. So first requirement is we will have to remove as far as possible all assignable causes from the process. Hence, for statistical process control, first thing is to remove, which I told you. Now, the highest variation minus the lowest variation become total process variation. That also we can understand. Do we understand standardization? Lot of us, or probably all of us, must have studied this in our 7th, 8th class, sigma, which is summation of xi minus x bar whole square upon n minus 1 under root. This is also known as root mean square value. And if we go by our frequency distribution table method, the range of all subgroup, average of that divided by a constant called as d2 is going to also give sigma. That is known as estimated sigma. This is known as calculated sigma. Calculated sigma becomes equal to estimated sigma in case of exactly normal process. If you have some question, we can discuss that at the time of quality question and answer session or even later. This is how it is calculated. If we have certain readings of a product, then we will calculate average of it. Then we will, from every reading, we will deduct the x bar, subtract the x bar. We will take square of all the readings. So the negative sign goes off in the squaring of the squaring process. Then we sum the whole thing. When we take sum or add all the products, all the dimensions, then we get, and when we divide it by 9, we get a figure. The square root of this figure is known as sigma. I have given a simple calculation of 10 readings. Idea is this should be done for 50 readings. This calculation need not be done. We can employ a simple formula which is given in Excel by the name STDEV, standard deviation. In the bracket, you pull all the readings or range of the reading through your cell and column requirements, and you will get the answer in a jiffy. The meaning of sigma is, statistically it is understood that if from the average of process we have plus and minus 1 sigma, we will get around 68%. Oh, sorry, 90. I am a little confused. 68% of the readings fall under plus and minus 1 sigma. If we add 2 sigma and subtract 2 sigma on the average, whatever value we are going to get, something like 96% of the total readings would fall into that range. And if we have average plus 3 sigma and average minus 3 sigma, we will have around 99.27% reading of the whole population that we have sampled. We have given an example over here. We have taken out average, we have worked it out, and we can see what I am trying to say. So here 100% observations are between this range, average plus minus 3 sigma. Here 96% observations are between average plus minus 2 sigma. Here 68% observations are between average plus minus 1 sigma. The only condition over here is that this process has to be statistically capable and normal. There should not be any chance cause. So this is what I have been trying to tell you. What I in the starting told you that even if you have all your process within the specification limit, there is a possibility that still 0.13% area would be out of range, which will be responsible for around 2700 parts per million. So this is clear from this picture. Similarly, for plus minus 2 sigma, we will have 2.25% on either side, and for plus and minus 1 sigma, we will have 16% on either side. So several times I am trying to tell you so that it goes into your mind. Now, what is a better process? We say that the process which is sharper with less sigma, so it can fit more sigma in between LSL and USL, is going to be better. So what we started with our presumption that our product should be well within tolerance limit. Here our product is within tolerance limit. Here we say that our product is well within tolerance limit. If your products are well within tolerance limit, the chances of getting rejection are low. Here the chances of getting rejection are still there. This is running a little fast. So when your process is also 3 sigma, your customer limits are also within plus and minus 3 sigma, your car is going to be barely entering into your garage. In the previous case, the car is going to hit goalpost or the walls of the garage. Oh, sorry. In case your process is 4 sigma, that is, you can fit 4 sigma in your specification limits on either side. Your car is going to be relatively easily going inside your garage. If it is 5 sigma, you can go still easily, and if it is 6 sigma, you have still better chance of parking your car in a comfortable way. But this is not exactly 6 sigma. We will talk about it if time permits. So what is process capability? We understand that Tolerance upon process capability or tolerance upon process spread is known as process capability. Mathematically, USL minus LSL, that is difference between specification limits upon difference between control limits, which is plus and minus 3 sigma, which is going to be constant, is going to be equivalent to CP. CP is nothing but process capability. And I told you sigma can also be written as R bar by D2. R bar is average of ranges considered in various subgroups. We are going to discuss that a little more when time permits. Now, see this. You have upper specification, you have lower specification, you have process variation well within your upper specification, lower specification. In this particular case, we have considered that the specification mean and the process mean are exactly matching with each other. Normally, that is not going to be the case. The process does not know where the specification mean lies. The process mean is calculated. So, CP is therefore the ratio of tolerance and actual process variation. So, just one correction, this USL minus LSL has to be under bracket. So, this 6 sigma is not only under LSL, it is whole upon 6 sigma. That is the only correction you must consider. What is CPK? I told you that you cannot have process mean exactly as specification mean. There is bound to be some shift. If there is a shift, there is a possibility that the process jumps beyond one of the side of specification limit and we will have certain reject parts. So what I am writing, however, if the process is not centered, it is possible that some product proportion is non-conforming. Not necessarily non-conforming. We can have a process which starts from here and stays within upper specification limit. But if it touches upper specification limit, there is a possibility that some parts, because of asymptotic nature of the curve, would be going out and we will have some kind of prediction. So even in Six Sigma, we say that there are chances of around 3.4 parts per million. Therefore, we cannot say in any process all across the world that there will be no rejection. Variation is a natural phenomena and therefore possibility of rejections are always there. So what is CPK index? There are two conditions. The car which was easy to enter inside has a variation mean different from specification mean, and therefore there is a possibility that car may hit the wall on either side. To factor for that, we will have to understand one more concept which is known as process capability index. And this capability index is calculated by upper specification limit minus x bar upon 3 sigma or x bar minus LSL upon 3 sigma. Minimum of these two values, whichever is higher, whichever is lower, is considered as the CPK. So CPK is always going to be less than equal to CP. If the means are going to be same, CPU will become equal to CPL, will become equal to CP. If there is a shift, CPU will be greater than or less than equal to CPL, which is definitely going to be less than CPK. This I am leaving. We will discuss about it in private if you have interest in that. Before that, you can go with my presentation, which is going to be shared by CCC. This I have already told you. For statistically controlled process, CP is equal to PP, which I have not told you this. I tell you in a brief, CP and PP are two notations. When we go by calculated method, we get PP and PPK. When we go by estimated method of Six Sigma or method of sigma calculation for sigma arriving at value of sigma, we consider it as CP or CPK. In earlier days, when computer was not prominent, working on or calculating sigma for 50 values, 100 values, 200 values was very, very difficult, time consuming. For decimal values running into 5 or 6 digits. Therefore, graphical method with statistical table came into force, and CP and CPK were prominent. In current scenario, when we can have result of calculated sigma in a jiffy, PP and TPK are more prominent. So we will ideally go for PP and TPK in most of the cases. Unilateral tolerance, we can discuss it at some other time. Ideally, we have no true limits in their case in unilateral tolerance. So one of the CPU or CPL is used depending upon the situation, and we go by that. CP or PP doesn't carry any meaning in unilateral tolerance. These are 4 scenarios. This is not stable, not capable. This is stable and capable. This is capable because it is within limits, but not stable because this is not consistent efficiency. This is consistent, but this is not capable because it is most of the readings are reaching the customer limits. In the case of 4th requirement, we will have to go for a precision machine. In the case of 3rd, we have to remove chance causes, and we will have a process like 2nd. 2nd is the most ideal, and we say that we should work on between 66%, 50 to 66% of the specification limit, so that you can take care of measurement system related errors and sometimes some here and there of special cause also. We can discuss control charts some other day. It is already 10:32. We have to discuss a little one more page of data collection, what to care for. We have to ensure machines preventive maintenance is done timely and it is up to date. We have to ensure that machine related coolant concentration, pH, viscosity, cutting oil, viscosity are in order. We have to understand that MSA of measurement system is less than 10%. We have to understand that running items to be measured are recorded in sequence. We have to also understand that we will measure only critical parameter or special characteristic, because carrying out SPC on some other parameter does not carry any meaning. Characteristic of only one process to measure. Sometimes it so happens that there is a 3 cavity die, 3 products are coming out simultaneously, and we consider them those 3 together, and a group of something like 15-20 such strokes giving us 45 to 60 products are considered in single assessment. That is not a right practice, because ideally the processes are 3 coming from each cavity, and therefore it is very important that we consider only one process while we are measuring. Otherwise we can get multiple peaks and multiple histogram, which will either contaminate our analysis or confuse us. We should keep subgroup size constant. We might discard initial reading, last reading, before lunch reading, after lunch reading, so that we have a better data set to work upon. So I conclude my session of SPC. Generally, we conduct full day session for participants of industries, since we understand that a lot of people are knowledgeable enough and they only need brushing, and their IQ is relatively higher than what we get on client side. We could compress it in half an hour. Hope you got it. I am open for questions.